Welcome to this week's episode of Catch Up with JP. I'm Jeff Perro. I am here this evening with Mr. Steven Paco Rodriguez. Mr. Rodriguez was an integral piece of the Dodgers bullpen from 2012 to 2015, in addition to being an integral piece of the University of Florida bullpen in his college days. Mr. Rodriguez, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate you for having me, and it's going to be a pleasure talking and just going back to the glory days.
It's a blast doing this, and I've met so many people that I've never talked to before. And you had that little awkward, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. And then, man, we get into it. We just start talking about baseball, and it's so much fun. But Mr. Rodriguez, you grew up in Miami. You grew up a Marlins fan.
Yep. So born and raised in Miami, and as a child, it was always about the Marlins, and it was always about the Yankees in my family, just because it was the two teams that we followed along, especially from my parents, and their history in Cuba. The two teams that they could follow up was always the Yankees or the Marlins. So that's how I kind of grew into baseball. And so, since I can remember, I had a bat in my hand with the Marlins hat on, and that was the way that I kind of came up into the game for sure.
You went to Gulliver Prep High School in Miami, all state, all everything, I imagined.
Yeah, so I had a pretty good career there. I came in as a sophomore. I got onto varsity as a sophomore and kind of helped out of the bullpen and played a little bit of outfield during that time. And from there, progressed into the starting role junior year and went junior and senior year and did very, very well during those 2 years.
Drafted in the 48th round by the Astros. Any serious thought to signing that contract?
No, you know what? I don't think I was mature enough at that point in time. Um, and just within discussions with the family and everything that came down to it, I think I just wanted to go to college. I wanted to experience that, and at the same time, be able to get my education. So I think that was the main goal. At the end of the day, choosing the University of Florida over Miami was a big deal. At home, but as a whole, it was a great decision, and it was probably the best route for my career in the baseball standpoint.
Going to University of Florida is definitely goes against the hometown U Miami crowd because that's a big scene down there. You spent 3 years at the University of Florida. That was good for your development, good for your maturity.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest step that I took, when it came to my baseball career, just because between the coaches in that staff at the time, between, of course, Kevin O'Sullivan, the head guy still there, somebody I still talk to this day. They had Coach Craig Bell that was there. He really helped out, just keeping the mood at ease. And then, of course, you had the hard nose. Brad Whitesell at the time, which was the person that reminded us of all the little details within the game that really put into perspective of how to prepare and become a professional at the end of the day. So between those guys, between what I got out of them, and the just the maturity aspects, the competitive side, and then the professional side, I think those guys really put you in a position to create success on the field that put me in a position to really do what I did, in pro ball as a whole.
Because then by the time you move on the pro ball, you manage yourself more. So by instilling those processes in you in college, it was automatic by the time you moved in the pro ball.
Yeah, I think what college really teaches you is, just kind of be able to grow up, set your routines, make sure that you make sure that you eat well, make sure that you have everything on schedule, and at the end of the day, just making sure that you're taking care of all your surroundings to make sure that you perform on the field, take care of your school, and do the right things off the field. I think those are the biggest things that school really taught me at the University of Florida. It was a privilege, and it was really a great experience of being able to go into pro ball and having a routine and having some type of understanding of how to take care of the preparation aspect of the game. And I think that's the hardest part that you kind of have to figure out is, can I build a routine, a quality routine, and then be able to repeat it every day, regardless of your surroundings? And I think that was the biggest thing that I took out of college for sure.
College World Series, how was that? That's got to be the pinnacle of your baseball career at that
Yeah,
point.
no question. Um, at that point in time, I'm going 3 years in a row. I got to play the last year in Rose and Black, which was, the first time ever being there for me as a freshman and being able to experience that. We went 2 and out. It wasn't the best experience, but you got the feel of it and you got what college baseball is all about. That was that first little taste. And then from there, you build off of that and go into sophomore year, into junior year, where we got to the second to last game, that we lost to South Carolina my sophomore year, and we battled against those guys with the Michael Ross of those days, and having to compete against them. You had Jackie Bradley that was there, Ingo that was there. You had Christian Walker. So you had a bunch of guys that were super talented players and players that made a great career for themselves. So it was a huge battle. Unfortunately, we came out on the losing side, but it was a lot of fun, and you can't take away those experiences for anything in the world.
2012. That's a heck of an experience. That's a eventful year for Mr. Paco Rodriguez.
Yeah, absolutely. It was it was such a I would say it was a swivel, just because there were so many amazing things that happened through the course of that year. Of course, I have a great season. Was able to get back to the College World Series. We make a push for it. Didn't work out. Next thing you know, I'm getting drafted. Getting picked by the Dodgers. Didn't even have a conversation with the Dodgers at the time. They just called me when they drafted me and said, "Hey, we're taking you here." We didn't have any conversations or anything along the lines, and which was funny. I was just talking to Logan White about this, and the reason that they didn't call me was because they didn't want anybody to know that they wanted to take me. So it was one of those things where they kept it super secretive, and at the end of the day, it was something that you dream of. It's the Yankees or the Dodgers. Those are the two teams that if anybody could get picked by, that's where you want to go. So of course I get drafted by them. Finally sign the paperwork, head out to training complex in Glendale, and from there, have a little workout, get my feet wet. They ship me out. I go to Midland, Michigan, spend a couple of weeks there, and then next thing you know, I'm in Double A at Chattanooga, and then spend about a month and change there, and next thing you know, I'm in the big leagues, and it's a swivel. It's a swivel. I just I was going at a really good pace at that point, and everything was falling into place, and I got the opportunity. That's what Logan was told me. He's like, if you go pitch well enough, you might have a chance to make it to the big leagues, and that's exactly what happened. Between him and Deshaun Watson, those were the two guys that were kind of guiding me through that process. They really pushed me through, which was awesome.
Was that suggested on that first phone call where they call you and say, "Hey, you sign with us, and you might be in the big leagues by the end of the year"? Was that something that you were prepared for?
It was a part of the conversations. It wasn't something that I felt like I was just being sold. Hey, let's get you signed. Let's see what you can do, and maybe you'll make it up to the big leagues by the end of the year. It wasn't. I didn't think that it was possible, but at the same time, my competitive nature and who I was as a ball player was up for the challenge. And I think that was what Logan told me. He's like, look, you might have a chance, and I said, okay, let's go. And I was ready for the opportunity, and I was really competing not just to get to the big leagues, but to show that I belonged. And I think that was the biggest thing, and I took that attitude every day. And next thing you know, I threw extremely, extremely well. Through I think it was 19 or 21 innings that I had that first year, and um, did very well. I think I gave up one run, and it was to what's this guy's name? It's not coming to mind right now. He was super fast. It wasn't D. Gordon. It was
Billy Hamilton.
Billy.
You,
There you go. There you go. It
you
was
said
Billy.
really fast. Billy Hamilton came to mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Billy. And Billy was the one that I walked him. He stole two bases and then on a fly out scored. So it was funny to think about at the end of the day, but I was like, yeah, I could have thrown him a fastball down the middle to hope that he hit it to somebody, rather that than walk him. But yeah, that was the only run that I gave up, and I just, I had a lot of success during that period of time, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and the next thing you know, I'm getting a phone call from Deshaun, and then from Logan White, and it was, hey, what are you doing? And I was at the golf course with the guys and Coach Chuck Krim, and we were just all swinging the clubs and having a good time. And they call me and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, we're at the golf course hanging." And they're like, "Well, you need to rush home and pack up your stuff." And I'm like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Yeah, we need you in LA." And I'm like, "You're serious right now?
California,
Like, are
Los
you?"
Angeles, LA.
Yeah, like I was like, "You guys serious right now?" And he's like, "Yeah, you need to go pack up your stuff. You need to be on a plane in like 3 hours." And I was just like, didn't know what to expect. complete shock, everything, you're getting all the feels going through it. Didn't know how to answer them at the time. I was just like, okay, and I hang up and, I call my dad and my mom and, and let them know. And, that's when all the emotions kind of break out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going. Like, I need to see you guys there. So, we got them on the plane and we did the whole thing. And, it was a really, really special moment and, a fun experience at the end of the day.
Threw your stuff in the locker. What happened next?
So I came in through a bullpen. I had warmed up that game. And then we were on the road and we went to San Fran where I got my first appearance against Brandon Belt for 1 out. I got him to ground out the first. Um, yeah, so there was
You
those few
did your
days
job. You
where
succeeded.
I succeeded. And you know what? I was blacked out through the whole thing, but I found a way to make it work. So it was great. It was super super exciting, and I couldn't have asked more. That's for sure.
That at bat, did you feel like, okay, I can do this. I belong here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and I think most guys will tell you, early on, you're just living off adrenaline, and you're just whenever your name is called, you get up there, you go do your thing, and just try to execute pitches. There's nothing else that you can accomplish besides that. So I think that was the biggest thing for me was I just wanted to execute pitches. I wanted to have my routine in check and make sure that everything was just focused on me, the catcher, and the glove. That's it. Everything else will take care of itself as long as I execute it day in day out.
You're successful. 2012,
Yeah.
13, 14, 15 years successful in the big league. So what you were
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
definitely worked. Um, so 2013 following year, 76 games.
yeah,
That's a heck of a workload. Even if you're
yep,
not doing two entire innings an appearance, that's a workload. You're getting hot that many times plus a year.
yeah. And then you don't count the times that you did get hot and you didn't get in that day.
Right?
So you're always taking into consideration those times. But it was something that I wasn't gonna say no to. I think that was just my way of being a competitor. Any day that they tell me, hey, how you feeling? I'm like, look, if you need me, I'm ready to go. Like that's just the mentality that you got to have. As a big leaguer, when your name is called, you got to be ready to go. And I think I didn't like taking the mental days off. If they told me, hey, you got a day off, it just wasn't what I needed to hear. I guess I wanted to prepare every day to get ready to pitch in a game because that's just the way that I competed. That was the way of the way that I wanted to compete for my teammates and compete for everybody else around me, and to just I needed to do my job. So that was just the way that I approached it as a whole.
Makes sense. I've with my careers inside and outside of baseball, those days off when you turn it off, it's harder to turn it back on. So I could see
Yeah,
the keeping it on constantly would be beneficial
yeah, I
to
think,
your
and especially as a
performance.
bullpen guy, as a starter, it's a little bit different. You'll give yourself, a day or two here, because at the end of the day, you are going out there for 6, 7 innings at a time, and it does take a toll. So it's good to just take a mental day. But when I came to the field, I prepared. I prepared every day, and that was the bullpen life at the end of the day. So for me, I was always up for the grind. When it came down to it, the preparation aspect of it and everything, I enjoyed what I needed to do, and I know that it kept me mentally right, and that was the game for me.
We 2014, same. Spent a lot of time in the Dodgers bullpen, a little bit of time in AAA.
Yep,
Um, and in 2015 was another eventful year, similar to
yep,
2012, just the opposite.
yeah, for sure. I made the team. I was creating some success, and then eventually my elbow went in the wrong direction. I felt, I remember I struck out Cargo and I had felt something in my elbow. Got it checked out after that and just told them, I'm like, hey, like I'm hanging a little bit. I try to fight through it for, I would say almost 2 weeks that I try to fight through it and I wasn't creating as much success as I wanted. I wasn't feeling well, and then eventually Donnie was like, "Hey, we're gonna put you on the DL. We know you're barking. I know you've tried to fight through it, but it's the best thing for you." And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready for it. I'll try to do everything that I could." And then from there, you go through the process where you got to go see the doctors, you got to go get your MRIs, see what's going on. So of course they check the elbow. They find a little bit of I have some bone spurs in there. I might have a flare in my elbow. So I went through that process and. Like anything else, you go through protocols and see if you can make it work. So the first thing that we did was get that bone spur taken out. go through the little rehab process. You're trying to heal it up. They put a little bit of a PRP shot in there, and then you go through the rehab, through that process. And once I got to the end of that process, my elbow still felt the same. Um, and finally, we pulled the trigger and said, hey, we need to get back in there. We need to make sure that we fix this also. And of course it took a couple of months to go through that process. Got traded at the same time, so then you go through that. I got traded, was still rehabbing, and then of course my elbow starts barking again, and that's when, I went and got the whole procedure done, with Dr. Andrews. So it was just a lot of moving pieces. You get traded, you're not healthy, you're trying to go through all the emotions, that you need to go through. It was a tough time, but it was a great learning experience. And at the same time, I was like, I just want to get it done just so I can get back out on the field.
You had that first surgery, get the bone surgery moved, and you're like, okay, I'm on my way back. I'll be back on the mound, and then it doesn't quite happen.
Yeah. And that was the goal, and everything was going the right way for me. When it came down to it, I was, going through the rehab process. I was throwing, I was doing everything that I needed to do, and I felt great. I was going through it all. I was long tossing, went through it, and then next thing you know, I'm throwing a flat ground. I throw a change up, and then I feel that same, that nerve like sting again, and I was like, finally, like, I can't do this. I went through it, and I'm like, let's go. I gotta go see Dr. Andrews and get this figured out. So yeah, it was, mentally tough, and it was a part of it that you had to deal with, like anything else.
You spent 2016 on the shelf for the Braves.
Yep, spent it in Orlando. I did the whole rehab process there in 2016. So I was with the big league squad, just hanging out until they left, and then went through that, there in 2016, which was great. Was you had a bunch of guys that were on the same deal, so we had a really good camaraderie when it came to just training together, working out together, and going through that process together was really fun with those guys. Which makes it a lot easier as a whole.
The fellowship of it, everybody in the same
Yeah,
boat. The
everybody's injured, everybody's going through that same mental grind. So we have to keep each other going in that aspect, and make sure we take care of each other when it comes to the mental side of it.
in 2017, you signed a deal with the Orioles, and it's still kind of rehabbing that. Made a few appearances with the Orioles, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was the first time that I really like got back on the mound. That first year back, competing again, with the Orioles, it was, up and down. Your arm isn't where it needs to be. The bounce back isn't where it needs to be, and then just the feel of the baseball wasn't the same every day. Some days I had this stuff, some days I didn't, some days I can locate, some days I couldn't. It was a tough process, but it was a fun process because I was competing again. So I always took the good with the good and the bad with the good. I was just happy to get back on the field and compete again, knowing that I was still trying to rehab and get myself back on track. So I think that was a positive for sure out of that year.
In 2018, you spent a little bit of time in indie ball, some time with the Twins. 2019, you were with the Padres and spent a lot of time Double A and Triple A. Did
Yeah,
you feel like that you're back on the trajectory to a big league mound from there? I mean,
yeah,
did you
they
feel like
were.
you're headed back in
They
the right direction?
definitely were. I think when I was with, the Twins in that 18 season, I think that was a year where I was healthy enough to get back on the mound. I just wasn't consistent. Just a matter of getting myself back in throwing shape. I think that was the biggest thing, was that year was more of a reload year. I got myself back out there. I knew that I can do it. I was healthy, which was the best thing for me. And then from there, go into the off season, get to working out, and then I try to make that 2019 season, the push. Everything was going great when I was with the Padres. They treated me fantastic, and they told me what the plan was. They're like, hey, we're gonna push you through Double A, Triple A, and we're gonna see where you're at. And if you start creating any type of success and you do a good job, you might have a shot to make it back. And we know what you can do when you're in the big leagues, when you're around that environment, and you get more out of yourself when things matter. I felt great, throughout the course of that year. Arm wise, the biggest thing that put me in a bind was, my knee. At the end of the day, I was pitching with a bum knee for about a month before I finally needed to go into the scope and get my knee cleaned out. But I was pitching with my meniscus all torn. I knew that I was putting myself in a position to be able to get back up there to the point where I couldn't do it anymore, and it was just one more time, you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. You're creating some success. You're being consistent, with your game of play. And next thing you know, boom, my knee goes out, and I'm trying to figure it out for a month. And it just got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. And they were like, "Hey, you're pitching great, but we know where you're at." And I was like, "Yep, there's nothing else that I can do." That was that. And from there, I went on the shelf. I went to see a doctor, and they're like, "Yeah, you have a bunch of bone spurs in there that are rattling around, and so you're not able to create the extension that you need in your knee, and so, just like anything else, it's hard to stay healthy."
If you're working through a bum knee, that's going to end up putting more strain on the shoulder and elbow, and then you're back there again. So, what was your next move? Were you looking for jobs for 2020?
Yeah, so it was, during COVID and all of that, I was down in Miami, and I was like, I need to go do something. I'm just sitting around, during that time. So I called Sully up, and I told Sully, "Hey, can I come coach as a student assistant? I'll come back, get back into classes." And that's exactly what I did, So I went and coached for a season over there. I did that, and I love being out on the field, and it was great mentoring those guys and helping out as a student assistant and kind of, the coaching side of the game, and how, a top five program in the country is going to go about the business, when it comes to recruiting players and going through the grind that it is to put a team together, year in, year out. So that was a very great experience, and taught me a lot of.
Is that your plan for it to be what you're going to do for your down year of 2020, or was that I'm done pitching professionally, I'm now a college coach?
During the rehab process, I didn't get the bounce back that I needed from my knees. Both of my knees were not great at the time, and it just took me forever to just get back to being able to move okay. And I finally just said, my knees can't take this anymore, and I'm not going to be able to pass a physical. So it just got to a point where I was like, I need to find something else to do, which was difficult because I knew that I have a lot more to give to the game. Just physically, I just couldn't keep it together. Where I can stay out on the field for 6 to 8 months out of the year. Stay healthy. So that was the hardest part for me, which it took mentally. It does beat you up a little bit because you have more to give, but your body just isn't allowing you to do it. So I went into coaching, and I did that, and then from there I moved back to Arizona because my son was in Arizona. I was during my playing career. I was away from him long enough, so I finally made the decision. Let me go back to Arizona, start trying to figure some things out over there. And next thing you know, I start my own, baseball club team / academy on the youth side. Started that when my son was 8 years old. I started with him, and then eventually I developed into, a couple of teams, which I still have to this day now, and I've been doing since. Which has been extremely, extremely fun. You give back to the community, and at the same time, you're allowing kids to, be around a professional baseball player and see the experiences, hear the stories, all the learning curves, everything that, I kind of went through and all my experiences. I want to be able to give it back to them because at the end of the day, my failures are only what they can learn from, So like anything else, that's the full circle, when it comes to life. And that was what I wanted to do, and it's been super fun since I started.
How are the knees? How's the left arm nowadays?
Well, my knees are still barking to this day. I still wobble around. I go to the gym, try to take care of myself as best as possible, just to make sure that I can function throughout the days. And then my arm is great. My arm, I throw BP to the kids every day, and I'm completely fine when it comes to that aspect.
What else you got going on besides that? You seem like from following you on Instagram, I'll throw a little shout out to Mr. Paco Rodriguez on Instagram. What else you got going on?
Yeah, so besides the academy stuff, I got into the agent side of the world, and started doing that with my own
What'd you go
company.
back to UF for? What degree did you get?
My degree was anthropology at the time, which was funny. It's just it was a baseball degree. It was the one that was easiest for the schedule. Yeah, I think the coolest part that I learned about anthropology was the study of human life. So you kind of learn about cultures, you learn about different people. You learn about how we came to be. So you kind of open up your eyes to how us humans became civilized people at the end of it. And then so once I got going through this youth side of baseball, I got back into the agent side of the world. just because, I wanted to get back into the pro side of baseball, just a little bit more mature conversations and be able to mentor players as a whole through the process that I went through. I had the best of ups and the hardest of downs. I got a lot of learning experience out of, and I can give that back to those guys that are going through that same process. That's the why I wanted to get back into it and be able to help these players, just stay mentally right through the course of their careers.
Yeah, you mentioned mentorship and sharing what you've learned through your career. My two standard questions I go back to with all of my guests is what advice would you go back and give your 18-year-old self about your personal journey through baseball, through college, through the draft and the minor leagues, and the mental side of the game and handling your body?
I think the biggest thing that I would love to give my 18-year-old self again was I think it's the discipline aspect of it. I did a good job. I'm not saying that I didn't do a good job because I created success, but I think the discipline that you create and the work ethic within what you're becoming, whether you're a pitcher, whether you're a catcher, whether you're an infielder, outfielder, corner infielder, whatever the case may be, do your homework. Do your homework and learn a lot and open up your ears and look at the different ways of the game and um, try to be smarter than everybody else. I think that's something that took me a little bit, after my freshman year when I had a conversation with the coaching staff. They kind of broke down numbers for me and told me, hey, like this is what you did this year. This is what this person did this year, and the reality was there was a big league numbers on the right side and my numbers were on the left side, and they were like, hey, you're doing this and you're doing this without even paying attention to what you're actually doing. You're just playing right now. Or like really focus on the details of the game and focus on, the simplest thing that they told me is like, do you even pay attention to your game of catch? Like you're a pitcher, right? And I'm like, yeah. Do you pay attention to what you're doing? Like every throw, and I think that's something that I harp on with my kids. It's like, if you're not focusing on the 10 minutes a day that you just need to focus on playing catch and understanding every throw, whether good, bad, or indifferent, if you're just trying to focus on learning from every throw, it's going to develop that much faster. And that was the biggest message after my freshman year was if I pay attention to every throw for 10 minutes a day, I think I'm going to get a lot better. And that's where, my career really took off as a whole. And that's where my process changed for me. I was really good at being able to play catch, understanding how to throw the baseball, and that was why I created consistency in the big leagues. That was the only thing that I can say. I can throw the ball where I wanted to. I can execute pitches when I wanted to, and it all came down to how I prepared. And that was just the game of catch that I played. So I think that's the biggest thing that I give that I want to give back to my 18-year-old self is just pay attention to the little things. And that's one thing that I always tell myself is like if I would have had a little bit more knowledge about my body and what I needed to do as a pitcher rather than just as an athlete, I probably would have been in a better position to stay healthy and be able to play a little bit longer within my career.
So my next question for you, 2019, the way it went down with your knees, and 2020, you're coaching college ball. Anything that you would have done different? Anything that you wish you would have known in 2019 when your knees shut it down for you? Any different approach you wish you would have taken to the life after baseball?
You know what? You could always make adjustments. I don't think regret is the way to look at it, but I think it's just a learning curve like anything else. And sometimes you're a little bitter to the game because you weren't able to give it what you wanted to give it. So yeah, anything else, you're a little upset to certain moments, to certain areas, and I think sometimes you're a little upset about how things ended rather than appreciating the way that it went, and I think, as I look back at it, I had a great career. I met a lot of great people. There's people that I still see to this day, like I saw, AJ Ellis, recently when I took the kids, to go see the Padres, and I go see him, and I told my kids, I'm like, look, like, God bless this human being right here because that guy did more homework than anybody else. That guy knew exactly what I needed to accomplish on the mound, and it made my job easier to create success in the big leagues. So those little things, the people that you meet along the way, you got to do something that nobody gets to do. You get to play in the big leagues, you get to compete at the highest level, and you get to do it with a bunch of people that are just all in it for the same reasons, just wanting to play ball and being able to do something that you're good at. And so, um, you got to look at the positives. And, so like anything else, sometimes you get negative because it's over. But the reality is, I couldn't have been more grateful for the opportunities that I got um, and just a career that I created. At the end of the day, nobody can tell me that I wasn't one of the better relievers during my healthy years. And those years, I probably, would have made a push for a great career if I just would have stayed healthy. So like that's why I'm back in the agent world, trying to guide players and make sure that they take care of themselves on and off the field, and then educate yourselves on how to invest your money, what you need to do to, build yourself both on and off the field.
I've talked to people who had short careers, long careers. So everybody kind of has a different answer to that question. But the one thing everybody does go back to is the people that you meet. That's just the nail on the head for the best thing about baseball is the people that you meet and the connections you make and networking, lifelong friends. So tell me a little bit more about life as an agent.
So I'm actually getting to a game now, which is great. I have a 2027
I appreciate
arm that
you
I'm
sticking with us while driving, by the way.
Oh, absolutely, no, and that's completely fine. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just watching baseball, doing baseball. That's what we do around here. Now in the agent world, I'm guiding players as a whole. Like right now, I'm going to watch a picture just because it's what I'm passionate about is on the agent side of things, it's like I told you, it's basically for each guy kind of understand the process that I may have not had the education that I needed. That for me is the goal.
Now you get to share that.
Now I get to share that and give that process to these guys and make sure that they're growing within it, and paying attention within it. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm super passionate about it.
Good. I'm glad you found something you're passionate about. I'm glad you can translate your experiences in the baseball world into that. How long have you been doing that?
I've been at it for a year now. I got into it, with my old agency, MVP Sports Group, and it's been a great experience, learning experience. You have to learn the game, you have to learn how everything works, but it's been super fun. So can't complain about it at all.
Gotcha. Hey, man, I wish you all the success of that.
No, I appreciate it, man.
So I'll go ahead and wrap up with you, man. I'll let you have the rest of your evening, but I appreciate you talking to me.
I'm all good, brother. I appreciate you, man, and thank you for the time. And yeah, if we ever want to chat up again, we're definitely happy to do that.
Oh,